the world's smallest country that runs not on taxes, but on donations, Vatican's economic battle. A nation that commands respect and reverence even in front of the world's most powerful leaders, yet finds itself struggling with such financial strain that it might have to sell off its historic properties. A country whose moral authority is globally recognized, but whose treasury is running empty. This is the story of Vatican City, the smallest country in the world, whose economy relies entirely on donations. And now, as donations dwindle and expenses rise, the question arises, can a sovereign state truly sustain itself solely on faith and generosity? Or does the Vatican now need to take tough economic decisions like any other nation? If the Vatican's budget itself becomes unsustainable, can this global center of religion and faith maintain its independence? Today, we will explore this topic in depth. But before we begin, if you are new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into today's discussion. Vatican City, spread across just 44 hectares in the heart of Europe, is considered the epicenter of the Catholic faith. As the residence of the Pope, it holds immense religious and cultural prestige. But the reality today is stark. Running the Vatican's economy has become a serious challenge. No taxes, no government bonds, and a financial system that relies almost entirely on donations and ticket sales. This unique model has sustained the city-state until now. But it's beginning to falter. And if this nation, which symbolically represents the faith of 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide, becomes financially unstable, the impact won't be local, it will be global. In 2021, the Vatican reported a total income of $878 million, but its expenses far exceeded that. The result? A deepening deficit year after year. This has become Pope Leo XIV's biggest challenge: how to preserve the spiritual heart of Catholicism while keeping its economic foundations strong. This is no longer just a question about the Vatican's future, it's a question about the future of global faith and the credibility that this institution has held for decades on the world stage. If Vatican fails to stabilize its finances, it risks weakening the very moral authority that has long set it apart. The Vatican has two primary sources of donations. The first is the annual payment made by bishops under canon law, and the second is the 𝐼𝐸 campaign, an annual global collection held on the last Sunday of June across churches worldwide. Of the $22 million in annual income, more than one-third comes from the United States alone. In fact, the 𝐼𝐸 campaign receives an average of $27 million from the US, accounting for more than half of global contributions. However, both of these sources have been declining in recent years, which poses a serious concern. If this trend continues, the Vatican may be forced to restructure its economic model, potentially affecting its independence and long-standing traditions. There are multiple reasons behind the drop in donations. Attendance at churches in the US and Europe has been steadily falling. Changing religious beliefs and a growing disconnect between younger generations and faith are key factors. Additionally, high-profile controversies within the church, such as financial scandals and cases of sexual abuse, have shaken public trust. As a result, people no longer donate to the Vatican as freely and openly as they once did. The COVID pandemic and resulting economic instability have also made individuals more cautious. What was once a gesture of pure faith has now become entangled with doubt and discretion. Church institutions that once financially supported the Vatican are now also reducing their contributions. As a result, the Vatican is increasingly turning to its real estate assets for relief. The Vatican owns around 4,249 properties in Italy and more than 1,200 properties in major cities like London, Paris, Geneva, and across Switzerland. However, only about 20% of these are rented at market rates. Over 70% of the properties generate no income at all, as they are used by Vatican or other church offices. Another 10% are rented to Vatican employees at subsidized rates. The failure to effectively monetize these assets has become a major factor contributing to the Vatican's financial fragility. In 2023, these properties generated just $40 million in income, a surprisingly low figure for an institution of the Vatican's stature. Ward Fitzgerald, chairman of the US-based Papal Foundation, also acknowledged that the Vatican may have to sell off some properties that are expensive to maintain and yield little or no revenue. But this raises a larger question. Will the Vatican, regarded as a fortress of faith and tradition, be willing to sell its cultural and historical heritage under the pressure of financial necessity? If that happens, it won't just be an economic decision. It would send a powerful message to the world that even the pillars of faith ultimately depend on economic infrastructure. Robert Gall, director of the Church Management Program at the Catholic University of America, has clearly stated that Pope Leo will now have to seek donations from beyond the United States. But this task is not easy. In Europe and other regions, the culture of individual philanthropy and tax incentives is not as strong or effective as it is in the US. And that's exactly why fundraising has become a major challenge for the Vatican. It must formulate a global strategy that can engage younger generations, leverage digital platforms, and rebuild trust while maintaining transparency. To fully understand this situation, we must look at the roots of the Vatican's economy. The entire administration of the Vatican functions under an institution called the Holy See, which is the central governance body of the Roman Catholic Church. A major portion of its income now comes from museum ticket sales, investment returns, and property rentals. But this income, heavily dependent on tourism, was severely disrupted by global events like the COVID pandemic and has still not fully recovered. On top of that, the volatility in global financial markets has destabilized investment returns, further limiting the Vatican's sources of steady income. So what lies ahead? Should the Vatican adopt a modern economic system? Should it introduce a tax regime? Should it sell properties and move toward long-term investments? Or should it issue a new global appeal to the Catholic community in the name of faith and devotion? These are the pressing questions now facing Pope Leo, and every decision is tied to the very survival of the Vatican. A balance must be struck between faith and reality, tradition and innovation. And that balance can only be achieved if leadership acts with vision and courage.
If this has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources, news from various news agencies, opinion polls and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.